Roblox has gone through many identities and faces throughout the years. Initially, I think for most people who saw it back then, it was just a little Lego ripoff. I knew that if I came across it in like 2009, I would have thought Lego made this instead of Roblox. And for its time, the idea of a Lego simulation online was a very cool idea. A big problem I had with Legos was that they were bound by reality, meaning when I had to play with Lego sets as a kid, it was super difficult for my brain to imagine anything because I had to use my hands to move the Lego sets around. Doing it in real life just never hit for me. I think I would just build something up and then just get rid of it 5 minutes later because I got bored. And if I tried to imagine like a natural disaster, I would have to go to a real natural disaster instead. But now I can just jump on natural disaster survival as a kid and get that natural disaster fix that I wanted. When I first thought of old Roblox outfits that I saw when I was a kid, not necessarily the kind from like the olden days, but from 2014 to 2016, I knew that Roblox avatars had a lot of personality. We had moved away from the Lego aesthetic at that point, but it was at this middle point where it started looking less like Legos and more like Roblox. And that's the identity of Roblox to me. These hyper realistic evolved versions of Legos, they look good. And to be honest, I think the UGC catalog has been carrying the Roblox avatar market for like the past few years. Look, before UGC, this is how it worked. Normal people could only make shirts that other people could wear, and everyone else had to buy hats and real items from Roblox, who made all of them. I remember when UGC first became a mainstream thing, people were criticizing it because of how it diluted most of the Roblox market with bullshit like this. I had an okay boomer hat from 2020 that I paid 150 Robux for. 150 Robux for a dead meme. I'm still salty about it, it's been like a few years, and oh my god, it's just such an L purchase. But I mostly thought that the liberation of UGC was a very good thing. It meant that people were getting more creative freedom over their avatars. Roblox, by definition, being the administrator of stuff, was split between A, keeping the company running, and B, pouring new items into the catalog, which by the late 2010s was something that they barely did. And I think they should, because at that point I think they had lost their touch with making Roblox items. If you think about all the iconic pieces by Roblox, it'll probably be something old, like from 2014 and before. I can't name any Roblox hat off the top of my head that was created after 2017, but I can name the Dominuses, the Shaggies, the Silver Crowns. Given this leverage to create items to UGC creators obviously created a lot of shit items that clogged up the catalog. I would say 95% of creations are bad or are just bought ironically, but it meant customization to a high degree that Minecraft, Fortnite or any other game can't possibly replicate. Roblox is a social media first, game second nowadays, so seeing people's avatars be customized to a level comparable to Snapchat or Instagram is going to be a competitive edge and something that aligns with their vision. There's an argument that old Roblox outfits had a lot of charm, and I would say that I agree. At the time, there were probably only a few hundred items that one could choose, and some people maximized and gave as much character to their avatars as they can back then. But I don't think this was Roblox's vision to keep it whimsical, Lego-y, and fantasy-like. None of this can pass off as even for the realistic or half-realistic, and I think Roblox thought that this was a problem, considering what they decided to do in the past few years. Roblox is trying to simulate reality, at least in their own way. I remember when the push for Rthro, back then it was called Nthro, was like back in 2018. It was something that stood completely against the ethos of Roblox and its fanbase. And I think that Roblox at the time was too excited to show off their grand plans because they didn't realize that 2018 Roblox and its audience was not prepared in the slightest for some shit like this. Rthro is in the game now, it's been there for years, and it's something that's been used by quite a number of people. But I think the majority of the community still harbors the same sentiments as back then. When you look at it, it just feels super dystopian, uncanny valley-like, and I would agree with that. Rthro is a sort of misstep on Roblox's part. I view it as like a growing pain when it comes to its evolution. It was trying to be different, trying to simulate reality, but something that they felt wasn't right for the long run. So they settled for something halfway, something that I think the community, whether they know of it consciously or not, agreed on, which was realistic but without removing the Roblox charm. It meant the use of UGC, avatar packs that were different in variety and allow people to create a look that could pass off as proto-realistic but very distinctly Roblox at the same time. And I think this is genius. Roblox before UGC was far more removed from reality in terms of avatars. Most of the items they created were bizarre, things that would belong in a museum rather than out on the streets. I mean, look at this. Imagine seeing this in real life. But from what I hear of UGC creators, most of the money that they make comes from making realistic items, stuff that you could see for versions of in real life. Hair, chains, watches, clothes, hoodies, things that you could see if you take a walk down to your local mall. And I think this is super interesting. Of course, there are the troll avatars, those those that makes you really small, really large, or ridiculous. But it gives optionality, having the option of being a fat chub, a small person, or even something with more realistic proportions. Having less limits of what we can do with our avatars gives the upside experimentation, while having less of the downside, considering that these changes can be done by clicking a few buttons on the Roblox catalog. I think Roblox's identity now is not to be realistic or to simulate reality, but giving people the chance to choose if they want to. We don't have to choose between hyper-realism or being unrealistic. Frontlines is a game where the art road that was used elevates it into somewhat of like a budget card but for Roblox. Just to Impress, which to me is like an evolved version of Fast and Famous, does benefit from the uncanny valley-like look that the art road gives, and that specific avatar pack definitely gives more customization than previous iterations like R6 or R15. Those outfits were limited by the blockiness of regular Roblox avatars. You can go successful with that, or you can strip it bare bones and return to the old style, someone like what Resident Massacre did with the old Roblox aesthetic. Or if you look at most psychological Roblox games, most of them use this old style. But the golden mean is those games that lie around the middle, which I think is most games actually. It could be like Evade that leans into the fantasy side of Roblox while offering many of the technical advancements that Roblox has made over the years. Or you can get something like Doors or The Mimic, where most of the environments are rather realistic as well as the monsters, but your character remains blocky and Roblox-like without creating any dissonance. So yeah, I think Roblox's style is they want to be realistic, but they want to do it in their own way. The Roblox profit machine is what I like to call for games that have a blueprint system when it comes to how they make their games. Anime games are generally the most formulaic, that outside of a few like Deep Woken are copy and paste from previous iterations. But let's take it back to the first formula ever, which was simulators. In 2017, Weightlifting Simulator popped off on Roblox, surpassing the, at the time, king of Roblox games, Jailbreak. The gameplay was equivalent to Cookie Clicker. You click the button and made a rep, and you just sit there waiting for yourself to get beefier. In my opinion, this is probably one of the most dry games I've ever seen pop off. Like, lifting a barbell in real life gives you more fun and gets your workout routine in for the day, but you're spending time doing it on Roblox. Anyways, Pet Simulator took this and refined it, creating a very robust monetization system. Unlike just game passes, there are gambling elements, with incredibly broken power scales and backed by a community that wants to see all of this. It's no wonder why it took off. Bee Swarm Simulator also sort of paved the way for this, but it's slightly more dynamic but super grindy. The reason why simulators work is because of emotional investment. It's so easy to get sucked into all these games. The thrill of getting better and self-improvement pushes you on in the first few segments, and then after that, the sunk cost pushes you to finish the game so that you don't feel as if you wasted your time. In the first phase, you like the game, in the second phase, you hate it, but either way, you would still be playing, increasing retention. All kinds of Roblox blueprints work because of this, at least in some way. You needed to have some sort of emotional investment, and then after that, a sunk cost that keeps you going. I think the better the game is, the more prevalent and longer lasting the first phase is, but from my experience talking to people who play these blueprint ass games, generally the second phase is what keeps them going at this point. What basic economics tells me is that if something works, people will copy it until it doesn't. So after seeing the success of Bee Swarm Simulator and Pet Simulator, 2,000 of these sport simulators spawned per minute from 2019 to 2024. This same thing happened with Battlegrounds, Tower Defense, Horror, etc. There's a blueprint, a set of guidelines that one can copy and paste easily in order to succeed and make a sequel. And there's a sort of quality in quantity, a sort of quality in being uniform with everybody else. You can see 5 games that look identical but have different developers with different stories, and they could all be very different games mechanically, but the similar packaging makes it an easier click for new players, considering they think it's very similar. The reason why this blueprint model wasn't that boring in the 2010s, or wasn't as prevalent as today, it was because it wasn't optimized to the same level that it is now. Retention strategies for Roblox games have mostly been figured out. People know what works and what doesn't through years of passing out information and trial and error, to the point where you know what kind of Roblox simulator would have the highest retention just by playing the game for an hour or so. Of course, this uniform-like way of making Roblox games reduces variety, which makes them super boring to anyone who isn't their target audience. The whole model works is because it targets people who A, have the most free time, and B, don't know the value of money, which is kids. And considering that they make up the bulk of the platform, they're fine alienating a few older players who might want some quality. There are a few pursuits that I did from the ages of 7 to 12 that I think are massive time sinks, and I think for most of Roblox's audience, these games are exactly that to them. This is something that I find most prevalent in anime. For example, let's say tower defense, there is non-anime tower defense and there is anime tower defense. The first community is somehow as large as the second, maybe even larger at this point, and it's 200 times more toxic. Tower defense games by nature are non-competitive, so the audiences are supposed to be more chill than other games like Battlegrounds, which are very competitive. There are gremlins in some of these games. They don't go outside, they don't go sleep, and they grind these games 12 hours a day. Okay, ran over. When you talk about the Roblox blueprint, it's like, why waste time innovating where it's really more risky to when you can just work off someone else's blueprint and hopefully get a chance at success. Roblox's success, no matter what you ever do, is random. There's certain constraints that you can do, certain strategies that you can employ, but it depends on convergence and player behaviors that are mostly outside of your control as the developer. You can't even predict or time when your game will blow up. The way that the Roblox profit machine works, it's very efficient. It fleeces the Robux and time from many impressionable kids who really don't know the value of two of those resources, and then the developers get to make a steady living copying off a blueprint from somebody else. To me, this whole thing is a win-win. But of course, this wasn't how Roblox used to be. Back in the early 2010s, most Roblox projects started off as solo creations where people messed about in Roblox Studio. The blueprint idea has been done many times. Back then, the old blueprint was to make murder mystery games pioneered from Twisted Murderer, The Man Murderer, etc. Somehow, Murder Mystery 2, a game that I feel has been untouched since 2017, is still gaining thousands of visits today, a sort of remnant from that earlier era. But this blueprint conservative way for Roblox game development that was pioneered from the mid-2010s did sour the platform into becoming like a glorified Flash player where all the games are the same but for the kids of today. Roblox is far more capable than what the front page would let you assume. You can get a very decent indie game from it if you push the engine to its limits. I would say the best games on Roblox are bordering on indie game level, something that can be published on Steam without batting an eye. So there's a problem here. There's an outgroup of people not too familiar with Roblox that see the surface and it looks like garbage because it's mostly made by blueprint slop, while there's an in-group that knows the best games of the platform. In a way, its identity is very split between the two, caught between a kid's game with no substance or an engine that could sometimes deliver thoughtful commentary on real life issues, punchy gameplay, or some showcases that look really nice. So this is what the Roblox market kind of looks like today. Here's the long tail, and imagine Roblox players inhabiting throughout this line. The bump that you can see at the start is Roblox and its most famous games. You can probably throw up a few that you already know, and then spread across this line are niche games which generally don't need to be watered down to suit the taste of a 9-year-old anime fan, so they have more creative freedom to make a good game. And I think at that line is where most of Roblox's brilliance lies. Those games from between a couple hundred to maybe a couple thousand players. Games that are mainstream but not really to the point where people that don't play Roblox have heard of them before. And when you look at my history, these Roblox games are usually the ones that I like the most. They usually innovate in some way, pushing the genre forward and give something that I can't find anywhere else. Basic economics tells me that when people start playing, they start throwing themselves to any game that seems moderately fun, but over time, as they have more experience with Roblox, they start to become better at seeking out more fun experiences or quality games. That's why you mostly see people that like quality games to usually be older or more experienced with the platform, similar to how game developers optimize the established blueprints through years of mistakes. The idea of one making a good game in order to keep retention high and keep people interested is only a half-truth. The correlation between high retention in the game and high quality in games only work with people who can sense bullshit in games, which are older players. For younger players, this correlation is rather weak or non-existent, so you don't really have to make good games in order to succeed. You just need to follow a blueprint and get a stroke of luck. For a game developer, it's really pick your poison. You either make something tried and tested and bank on the wins going your way, or you can make an original work that may catch attention, is also as unstable, have a more niche fan base, but something that is longer lasting in terms of satisfaction and income. Either way, these two approaches to Roblox games has changed the way it has been looked at by outsiders and the insiders who know the pulse of the community. There is a game now for everybody. If they prefer a more realistic experience, they can play games with Arthur avatars. If they have a boner for old Roblox, there are a few games that could support that. There's a lot of choice nowadays, but notice how, except for being branded under the Roblox logo, many games on the platform look almost nothing alike. They could be sharing spots on the front page, but have completely different fan bases catered to different people, and they would never interact with each other. And I think this is Roblox's strength. It's a good thing that people have options to to find the communities that they like online. Roblox doesn't need to have an identity. Its identity is to be formless, so people can mold it to however they want. It's a Frankenstein. There's no cohesive identity, and I think that's great. Back when it was more cohesive, people would bond more if you just told them you play Roblox. I remember doing the 2018 egg hunt with people that were completely the opposite of me in terms of personality. There's really no unifying thing holding the Roblox community together, and sub-communities usually don't interact with each other at all. In a way, I do like Roblox calling their games experiences, as pretentious as it may be, because it feels like stepping into a whole new culture with every single game that I play. Roblox to some people may feel like one homogenous group of people stuck in a bubble. One person's Roblox diet could just be Battlegrounds games and they think that's all the platform has, but it's mostly that these genres with blueprints all feel samey, so they share the same fan base across multiple games and have the same community. If you're stuck in that bubble, you may feel that this is all that Roblox has, and I think that contributes a lot to boredom. But the best way to enjoy Roblox from now going forward, at least in the future, is to enjoy how random it all is, jumping on games and giving them a try just because it looks interesting, make friends from very different communities, and benefit from the options that it gives you rather than boxing yourself in.